Woo, woo, woo! We are now live with Uncensored Entrepreneurs. My name is Christina Whiteley, and I've got my co-host Tina Torres and Star Cod today. And we've also welcomed Miss Phebe Trotman onto our show because we are going to talk about the ups and the downs of entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about why it's so important to overcome the adversity. And we've all had bad days. We've all had days where we just want to throw in the towel, go back. Maybe you'll get a job at Starbucks and just like not have to think about anything, right? Like just unplug from it all. Maybe fly off to another country. Who knows? But what we're going to talk about,
move your whole family to Cabo.
Maybe there's always options.
Always
options. What we're going to talk about today is how to never quit and why to never quit on a bad day, on a bad week, and maybe even on a bad month. It's still worth pushing through when you know exactly what you're here for. And so Miss Phebe is going to have this conversation with us. We're really excited for you because we know the trials and tribulations of building business, and we're here to help you overcome them. So welcome to Uncensored Entrepreneurs.
Thank you.
We have like the best intro right now.
Oh my gosh. I was like, oh, look at that picture. That's awesome. I love that. Well
Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, those people are awesome.
I'm like, oh, wait, that's us.
So it was kind of funny because when you are in StreamYard and they're not on stage, people can still hear you. So Star and I were talking because as you guys know, I got engaged over Christmas time. And so we are like in the middle or in the beginning stages of wedding planning. And let me just tell you, if you have had a wedding in the last couple of years, I wouldn't say like 10 years ago, but the last couple of years, I need help. I went to my first expo and I was like, oh my God, my girlfriend was like, okay, so what is your theme? What is your vibe? What is your dress? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, yes, I do. I'm Tina Torres. I have a whole Pinterest board on my Pinterest board of my dream wedding. But then when you have it and it's starting, you're like, whew. So it was behind the scenes and she was like, I feel like a fly on the wall listening to wedding planning.
And I loved it though. I loved it. I'm so excited for you. So massive congratulations.
Thank you. I have known you for so long, like 12 or 13 years. We have known each other.
And at least it might even be longer.
I think it might be longer.
I think it is actually. I think it is.
But we were in a network marketing company together, on stage together and doing all these things. And we've seen each other at the Faith Over Fear event. And it was so funny because my girlfriend Tyler was like, it was like a rom-com. You guys are both running to each other. Because I hadn't seen her in so long. And so she was able to meet Tony and see him and talk to him and all that kind of good stuff. So it's good. But so excited that you were on the show today. I want to do a little thing about your book because this book, she gave me an autographed copy of this book. And when I got back home, I had like so much luggage and stuff. I was like, Phoebe, guess what? I can't find my book.
She messaged me that. I was like, wait, what?
Like she personalized it and everything for me. And I was like, I can't find my book. And then I found it. It was like in one of my mini bags that I had that was all packed. But Never Quit on a Bad Day book series will inspire you to push you through those tough days. Everyone has frustrating moments and days, weeks, months, anything. The people in this book have also faced those challenges and struggles, and they didn't quit. So you're going to be reading about some of the bad moments, the days, the seasons, and the thriving business leaders, couples, athletes, and entrepreneurs have persevered through to get to where they are now, which can help you learn how to keep going on your challenging days. So, Phoebe, thank you so much. I appreciate you for being here, for being one of our guests. I was so excited to read your book, and I actually started to read all the different stories, and it's so inspiring to hear. Because 5 years ago, I went through a lot of stuff. And when you're going through that, you feel like you're the only person going through that. And, you're sitting there, and I'm a social media person, so I'm like scrolling, and I'm looking at Christina just having a beautiful day, and she was going to get a wine, and she was going to have an apple orchard and all that stuff. I was like, oh, she's living a perfect life. And I see Star, and she's living the perfect life, has 50,000 people in her Facebook group and doing this and doing that. And I'm like, oh, I suck.
It's behind the scenes. You never get to see behind the scenes. And like, none of us have perfect lives. None of us have perfect relationships, perfect days with our kids. None of that actually exists. We're all human, And I think so often you see this highlight reel on social media and you think good for them. And you talk about the apple orchard and like how beautiful that was. And I was like, yeah. And then we sold it and we left everything and moved to Mexico and we like gave up on that dream. And that was like heartbreaking for us at the time, when you think that you're going to go one way and the other. Same thing goes, if with marriage and you get divorced and you go through all these things, all these emotions, and you're like, how did this happen to me? Right? We have this like moment that like all of a sudden, oh my gosh, how did I get myself in this situation? And that's the first reaction, right? But the second reaction should be, how do I get myself out of it? Not the victim, but
I think it is the other thing.
Right?
I think you start going, oh, what did I do? What's wrong with me?
What could I have done better? Right? What could have happened differently right now? But I think I know all of us have been in this place, right? Where we've questioned if the path that we're on right now is the right way forward. And I've been in this like fork in the road multiple times in my life that I just like, I don't want to get out of bed today because it's too hard. It's too hard today. There's too much going on. There's too many things that are going on that are outside of my control. There's nothing that I can do. But over time, it's those moments that you choose to overcome. Those are the ones that build your strength to move forward, right? So Phoebe, I cannot wait to hear about, your book and all these things that you've been doing, because I think that it's so inspiring to talk to people about the lives that they've lived and what they've overcome, because nobody really cares about your success. They care about what challenges you've overcome to get to where you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love what you guys started with, because I think you hit the nail on the head, right? We see the highlight reel on social media and we're like, oh, it looks great. And, social media is for that. Like, it's a lot of times we want to share our highlights or successes, things we're excited about, dreams, travel, and sometimes there'll be, something that someone's struggling with and they might put up a prayer request, but most of the time it is the highlight reel, right? And a lot of times people don't see the story behind the story. And that's one of the things that I just got really excited about it with this book. And the way it even came to be is the month before I decided to make this and go forward with it, I had a cool honor. I was inducted into the Coquitlam Sports Hall of Fame just for my athletic success. And in that, we had a little interview.
For my athletic success.
Well, no, because I like.
He is a rock star soccer player. Let me just tell you.
That was the previous chapter, but thank you. But the reason I share that is because in that interview, we had this conversation, and one of the guys at the induction ceremony, the interviewer asked me, like, what has sport given me? And I shared a lot of the incredible life skills that I've learned being an athlete and how that's just translated into, business world and life in general. And I shared that I've been very fortunate to have played on some exceptional teams, had national championships on all different levels, a lot of personal accolades as well too. However, I shared that the only reason I was able to have those highlights and those successes is because of the being cut from a team, sitting on the bench, getting the game and wanting to play more, bouncing back after injury. So it was pushing through those. And I love what you shared, Christina, because it's true. On the other side of that adversity is truly where the growth happens, the magic happens. And so, when I was saying this in that at that induction ceremony, I never thought it would translate into this book. And it's interesting how that came to be. But I just agree with you. There's lots of times there's crossroads, there's opportunities in front of us. It's just a matter of stepping through that. And so that's what I'm most excited about, is just for people to kind of see the story behind the story, so that they know, as you said, Tina, you're not alone in what you're going through. Even if the struggle isn't the exact same, the emotions oftentimes are, right? The frustration, the disappointment, and how that translates. You can see in someone else what they're going through and maybe pick up a tip, or just feeling encouraged by them getting through it helps you too.
That story is so incredible. Like, don't you think when you talk about sports, and you actually just gave me an aha moment, because my little girl started soccer. She's 7. And so, but she's in Mexico. So like these kids started when they were 3, right? So she's like a little bit behind the 8 ball.
Just
And
a
so
little
Brian
bit.
and I,
White blonde girl in Mexico in the soccer on the soccer
right.
team.
And so, but I love what you said, because we watched her for the first few practices, and she did more cartwheels than she did kicking the ball, right? And I'm just like, how do we get this kid to play soccer?
Like,
how do we get her to take this seriously, right? But you just made me realize in that moment, because I haven't been pushing her, I don't want to be that parent, but you just made me realize in that moment, when she wants it and she sees something different that she wants, that's when she'll be willing to go after it. Absolutely. So it's not a matter of me having those conversations with her. It's a matter of her experiencing life and then deciding that she wants more, because she's been disappointed by sitting on the bench the whole game, or not getting the play time, or not getting to handle the ball. Well, then we have to increase your skills. That's how you get that result. So even that little thing helped me so much today. Thank you.
You're welcome. And one of the things I coach, I just have to say this, because I run a program for kids under 4 to under 7.
Oh, perfect.
For girls, you know what? And sometimes little boys, it happens. Here's my thing. As long as they're having fun, if they have a smile on their face, that is the most important thing, because the soccer piece will come. And really, it's about the life skills that you learn as an athlete in all sports that can translate over into real life, right? So that's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
That is a big reason why I wanted to start Uncensored Entrepreneurs, and I didn't know the title of it, but I wanted it to be real and raw and like unplugged. And so that's why our tagline is real, raw, and unplugged. And I talked to Robert, and I called Christina up, I called Star up. And I told them, listen, this is going to be like behind the scenes, because I was so tired of seeing everybody's highlight reel and thinking that I wasn't good enough. And I knew I had the skill set, and I knew, but then you even start doubting yourself. And I've had 6, 7, and 8-figure coaches do the same thing. Oh my God, how am I going to write this book? And I'm like, what? You're a freaking 8-figure earner. What? So like all these people have the same feelings. And I wanted to see, that, I was struggling dating when I was single, in the dating world, being an entrepreneur, because they're like, so you don't have like a real job?
That's a whole nother show, dating as an entrepreneur.
It was crazy. Like all the guys would be like, so you're a talk show host, and all these people talk about you and do this, and like they didn't understand like any of it. And I tell Tony all the time, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, saved me from all the dating hell. Because I literally went through 99 worst first dates. But literally, and I have every one of them has a nickname, and it's just hilarious.
That's a book there, right there. I'm talking about a friend about that too.
I was wanting to wait for my happy ending chapter, and I got it. So be prepared for 99 worst first dates coming soon.
I can't wait.
I love it. Can I throw in something in there? A couple
had a worst first date. Let me see your thing. I mean, I've had married guys, a wife walking in on our date, guys who were drunk. It was bad. But only that,
we called my ex before I met Ryan. My best friend and I call him whiteout. So like we just white out that area of my life. Like that year of my life, we just white out that whole area.
Oh no, we don't do 2006. It went from 2005 to 2007.
White out.
But not only that, but being a single mom and being an entrepreneur, or being married and being an entrepreneur, and how to balance it all, or how when you had a full-time job and being an entrepreneur, it's just so many things that we all have gone through or have done, and I just was so sick of seeing all the highlight reels. And I remember Christina doing one of the TikTok or a Facebook Live, and like she was in tears. And of course, she was my friend, so I stopped and watched it. She got tons and tons of comments on her thing because she was being so real and authentic. And I think we need to make that a little bit more of a thing, that we, not that we go live and start crying.
Don't be a hot mess. Try not to be a hot mess.
Don't have like snot coming out your nose. but just listen, today's a hard day for me. How
Yeah.
many of you guys are having hard days? And it's true. And, I've called Star up and I've called Christina and I've definitely have called Robert up going, hey, my life, and you just need those people to help you stay on track and to reiterate that you are enough and that you are worth it and to not quit on a bad day.
So Phoebe, I didn't realize that you were an athlete. So that explains a lot about, the work that you do. Now I'm like, this makes total sense.
Like, ah.
But can you share because our audience is full of entrepreneurs, you being an athlete and now you're, I know you're coaching and I'm sorry, yeah, you are coaching little kids. I don't know if you actually coach. Can you tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurship journey? How did you get started? How did you land into that? And some of the things that you did to not actually quit. I know it's natively within you though, because you're an athlete.
Yeah, you know what? So those are a lot of great questions. So let's go with how the athletic or the entrepreneur journey started, and then I'll circle back to the not quitting piece. So I graduated from university. I was also playing soccer after university, and I was working as well too. And I was just uninspired at my job. I got to a point where I wasn't really learning, I wasn't really growing. And so what I did was I actually ended up starting a coaching business of my own for soccer with a teammate of mine, and we'd go around the province teaching kids how to play soccer and doing camps and clinics and whatnot. And then I started learning about, a friend of mine told me to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I read it and I was like, passive income. Whoa, what's that? That sounds great. And so then I started learning about real estate investing and doing that. And then I started, so I was doing all these different things on the side. I started once a month with a couple of friends, kind of a community event to bring like the African and Caribbean community together. And so just kind of like different hats and enjoying all of it. And my whole plan was like, okay, I'll build up these little side businesses to a point where my income's high enough, and then I'll, leave my full-time job and we're good. However, sometimes life has other plans, and I actually ended up getting laid off. And I remember the day so vividly because I was sitting in my office and I'd finish projects for my work, and then I'd go to my boss and be like, what's next? And he'd be like, oh, I'll come down in a minute. And so in that time, I just work on my side projects, right? Just stay active. And one day he came in, sat me down, and basically told me the company was bankrupt, so everyone's going to be laid off. And if anyone's watching, they've ever been laid off, I felt, you go like this in your emotions, right? One hand, I was like, oh, wait, I don't have to go to work. That's kind of sweet. Next minute, like, oh
wait, I'm not going to have a paycheck.
And because those side businesses were just kind of, I was doing them, but it wasn't my main focus. In that moment, and you talked to Christina too about like those crossroads. And so in that moment, going through all the emotions and kind of looking at options, what I could do, when I just sat in it for a moment, and I encourage people to do this, is when I looked forward in terms of what do I want my life to look like? Like I really got intentional and I was like, okay, what's important to me? What do I want my life to look like? And I knew I wanted to have a flexible schedule. I wanted to have control of my time. I wanted to be able to kind of work from anywhere. And so when I sat with those things, and I should have mentioned too, I had gotten started in the network marketing company that Tina and I met in, mostly because I could use it as a tool. A friend of mine shared it with me and thought I could use it for my soccer coaching business. And so, because I was excited about passive and residual income, I naturally signed up for the entrepreneur package at the time, not really to build it as a business, just because I was like, well, I know I'll share it with a few people when I'm having success with it. And so, with all this crossroads time, and when I looked forward and said, well, what do I want my life to look like? I realized that this business, because it was online, it was a network marketing company, so I could work as a team. My mom had actually had a home-based business when my brother and I were young. So she stayed home and was with us. So I had seen, the whole network marketing industry from that side, but I hadn't found anything that I really wanted to jump on board with. So when I was laid off and I looked forward in my life, I went, okay, this makes sense. And so I jumped in. It was so bumpy in the beginning, so bumpy. My vision of the entrepreneur life from the start, I was like, okay, I'll work today. You know what? Tomorrow, I don't feel like working today. I think I'm going to take a couple of days off. Okay, I should probably do something. And then I do it again. It was like, one of the things that's funny, because I have a lot of the skills from being an athlete, but I just didn't think about it in terms of business. I was just excited to must control my own schedule. And so anyway, so that's kind of how I started in the entrepreneur world, if you will. But I did do a couple things right that I learned from soccer. Number one, I showed up. So I started going to company events. I started plugging in, looking for coaches. And one of the beautiful things in network marketing space, there's coaches all around you. So I started doing that right away. And so that's kind of how the entrepreneur journey started, if you will. And the never quit piece, the reason I think that, well, I know that I stayed with it, was if I circle back to my soccer career, I remember I went out for a friend of mine, teammate, was like, we should go out for this team. And so we were already on one team and this was a provincial team. And so I was like, sure, I love to play. Like it's more like experience. Let's go for it. And I was, one of the top players on my team. So in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, let's go for this. And I'll play with other players. And of course I'll make the team. And the coach at the time asked what position I played. And I usually play up front, but somehow he thought I was a great defender. So I was playing defense in this kind of tournament, if you will. And I did okay, but I didn't make the mental switch to that. And unfortunately, I didn't make that team. And I was devastated. Like I cried and cried and cried for weeks. And finally, my parents kind of gave me okay, well, what do you want to do? The past is the past. Like we can't change what happened. What do you want to do going forward? Do you want to play this sport? Is this what you really want to do? And in that moment, I realized I was like, yes, like I want to be an impact player. I want coaches to be like, we want Phebe Trotman on the team. And so they're like, okay, well, what can you do? What do you have to do? And it was really a matter of like, well, making the mental shift, making the most out of every opportunity. Even if it's not your preferred position, making the most out of that. I knew I could train harder. I could do my own stuff behind the scenes. And so I did that. I was playing with my older brother. I was playing with my dad. I worked on my own. And so that was a huge turning point for me, where it was like that accountability, that look in the mirror and be like, well, if this is what I truly want, I can do other things over here to help me have the success on the field. Because a lot of that winning the game is all done outside of what you see on that game day, right? So that attitude has just carried me through from that moment when I think I was 13 at the time. It's carried me through where it's like, if I want something, I know I can do it when I get to work behind the scenes.
Oh, I wish I learned that lesson at 13. I did
Right?
not learn that lesson at 13.
I had great
I just
parents.
thought, oh my
parents
God, I
did.
suck at basketball, or I suck at this. Like, I'm never doing this again. It's an embarrassment to myself. And so I wish I'd learned that lesson at 13. And you know what's so cool is to hear how those seeds were planted in you young and how they developed as they go on. And I know that we all, wish that we had learned certain things and just have different life experiences. And one of the things that I think is really interesting too is that, it's one thing if it's unintentional, right? Like you walked into that job and the company was going bankrupt. There's nothing you can do about that. But there's also times in business where it is intentional, and what you talked about was instead of reacting, which is crying because you didn't make the team, which we've all been there. We've all cried for not getting the guy, not making the team, not getting the job, right? But then it's how you respond. And there's been a couple of times in my life where, I remember I worked at my very first salon, built a full clientele, decided to leave and start my own business because I couldn't make more than $36,000 a year at the salon. And when I started my own business, the owner of the salon called every single one of my clients and offered them a free service. Right. And that's like the day that I wanted to quit, the day that I wanted to give up, the day that I was like, I can't compete with this. How am I going to compete with this? But you learn how to respond in the process. And we've all been in network marketing. We all know what that culture is like. Right. And so I've also been in that position when you leave a company to move on, you're no longer aligned with a company. You're moving on because it's the right thing to do for you, your family, everything that you believe in. Right. But then all of a sudden, all these people that you help are all of a sudden your enemies. And they all start saying these things about you and trying to degrade your character. So nobody else goes with you. Nobody else leaves with you. You have zero influence because you're a horrible person, even though you're not. And so you start to think like, am I a horrible person? Is this wrong? You have these questions that come into your mind. But when you have that rock solid foundation that this is my responsibility, I get to choose how I respond. I can do anything. I can overcome it. Things shift differently and they shift faster, right? Because a lot of us can get hung up for 6 months in a bad spot or a year in a bad spot if we don't have the chops or the mindset to move through that action.
Absolutely. And I think it's key what you said, like we're all human. So it's not that something happens now and I don't ball my face and cry.
Sure.
Absolutely. I'm a crier. Like I cry great moments. I cry sad moments. Like it's not that, but it's true. How do you bounce back, and do you bounce back faster? Like, yes, okay, we're human. We're going to feel the punch. We're going to feel the impact. We're going to be, frustrated. We feel all those emotions. It's how do you respond to it? How do you choose to change turn those emotions into something that's going to propel you forward, if you will.
Yeah.
And I love what you said too, Christina, in terms of like leaving a network marketing company, because the other piece in the book, I do talk about like, when is it a good time to quit? Because so often people hear the title, like never quit on a bad day. And it's like, wait, what? Never quit anything? And it's like, no, we're not saying that at all. What it's saying is like, when you're going to transition or move forward or start something new, whatever that may be, first of all, you're moving forward, you're making that decision, and it's really making that decision from a positive place where, so you're not quitting something because we're angry, the negative emotions of why a lot of times we quit. You want to push through those, get to the other side. And if you're going to quit something, or I like to say transition into something else, do it on a good day. Do it when you're doing it because you're looking forward at your future and you're realizing, hey, you know what? This is the path that I want to take now to get me to where I want to go. Or maybe you've learned a lot in that one area of your life, and now you want to transition and be in another area to accomplish something in that area. So I think it's really important for people to realize like transitioning is part of life. Just do it from a place of positivity, place of peace, clarity. And then when you're moving, move forward to something else.
I like how you said that it's a transition and not a quit, because, you know, in network marketing, you're in a place in your life and you're like, ooh, this works for this time in my life. And then something happens and you're like, you know what? I think I need to stop this and go to another company. I mean, we've all been in 3, 4, 5 different, sometimes 10 different companies, but I think I've been in like 10 different companies.
Go ahead. I was like,
my ex was just like, he would bounce from one to one. And I was like, can we just stay at one? And, you know, like with you, you know, I was in the same company you were, and it was an amazing company at the time. And I loved it. And I loved the culture and I loved this. And then things started changing and my life started changing. So I did transition into something else. So Phoebe, you know, I think that'll be good for leaders and entrepreneurs to hear this, because if you're a leader and one of your team members decide to transition to a different company, don't be ugly to them because they're doing something for themselves. You know what I mean? Like, you get those leaders who are like, I can't believe you're leaving, and you're calling everybody. I'm like, leave them alone. They're doing this for yourself. So those leaders need to hear this, but the entrepreneurs need to hear this too. So Phoebe, if the leader and the entrepreneur is watching this, what would you tell each of them about never quitting on a bad day?
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to touch on what you just said too about when people leave or transition, just love on them. At the end of the day, it's about a relationship. And I've had, you know, I've been with the same company now. It's been 17 years, 18 years. So I've had a lot of people who in my organization who have come and gone. I've had people who I was close friends with in the company that have transitioned on. And my whole philosophy, it's about the relationship. So just love on them. We don't know what's going on in their life, why they feel they need to make this move. And when you just nurture that relationship, that is the beautiful thing of network marketing, having friends and people from all around the world that you're connected to. And I know it's hard because, again, trust me, I've had legs of team like whoop, and it's devastating. That's where the tears come and the frustration. But then step back from it and realize like they're doing what they feel is best in that moment for them and their family. And all I feel like we can do is respect them for that decision and cheer them on. Like I have like team members who have left into other things. And yeah, of course, would I have loved them to stay where we, you know, with our company? Of course I would, right? However, they made a decision based for them. So the best thing I can do is cheer them on to success in that other company, right? Let them, you know, okay, great. You learned a lot of skills over here. Take it over there and rock it over there. I'm cheering you on, and just bless them as they go forward on their journey. And again, it's challenging. I completely understand. However, I just feel like we have to respect that people are making the best decisions for where they're at that time. So wanted to just say that. Sorry, your question about never quitting on a bad day. Network, are we talking just life and business? There's going to be those
as an entrepreneur, you know,
as an entrepreneur there, you know, and I have real estate investments, and there's been frustration there where tenants like, where I'm like, oh, and it is frustrating. But I think, again, you go back to, what do you want your life to look like? Why are you doing what you're doing? And when you can focus on where you're headed, that pulls you through. And so one of the things I talk about this a lot, and I learned this actually in our company before, it's just about creating your perfect day. And I've kind of added to it. So I call it your dream day. And I always challenge entrepreneurs in general to take some time and get a journal. I have a workbook too, but just essentially what it is it's taking some time and space and basically writing out, what does your dream day look like for you? From the moment you open your eyes, moment you close your eyes, what does that day look like? Who do you surround yourself with? What activities do you experience? What is your business like? What are your relationships like? And writing it down in the present tense and really feeling it. And the reason I encourage people to do it is because I remember when I first did it and I was nowhere near living my dream day at all. Like, it was such a stretch for me to really like sit in it and write that out. And I've done it over and over and again, elevated over the years. But the reason I share that is because I use that literally as a lighthouse. So when I'm going through those tough days, and as we said, we talked about in the beginning, tough days, sometimes it's a tough week, it might be a tough month, it could be a tough season. Like, when I'm going through that, that's what I focus on. I get it out, I read it, I go, okay, so this is why I'm doing this. This is where I want to head. Okay, refocus, right? Because we need to learn that bumps in the road are part of it, right? Pivots, reevaluating, changing direction sometimes, or taking a different path to get to the same place. That's all part of that journey. However, it's important for each person to realize like their definite, and the reason the dream day kind of ties into what's your definition of success? Because all four of us, although we're all entrepreneurs, our definition of success for what we want our life to look like is going to be very different. There might be a lot of parallels, but there's going to be some things that are different. Yep. And when we can know what we're looking to create, that gives us that clarity to pull us through when we're having those tough times.
I also take screenshots. Do you guys take screenshots when you get good feedback? I have like a folder of screenshots of people that were like, I am so grateful for you. God brought me to you. And I just keep them for those days where people are being jerks or talking behind your back or whatever it is. I'm like, I'll go read these instead right now. Like, thank you. Mail. That's right. Because it happens, right? I had it happen this week that somebody came to me and they said, some gossip that they heard. And they're like, how would you like me to handle this? And I was like, can I just tell you, I don't give a flying what? Like, I really just don't care what that person thinks, because just by the comment, they don't know me personally. They've never worked with me. They've never been in my inbox asking a question. They've assumed. And I don't have time for low energy problems like this anymore, because you never get to reach the top when you're constantly dealing with the drama and the gossip and the bullshit that goes with all the low-lying stuff. So I just said, I don't know, if you feel like you want to defend me because you like me, that's fine. But like, I really don't care. Mm-hmm. You get to that point in business, and that actually, those things, when you start surrounding yourself with higher level people that want the best for you, right? Not the people that are constantly in your inbox complaining, or you go and you're like, hey, how can I help you build business? How can I help you with your team? I'm good. I'm just feeling uninspired. I just don't really. Okay, then go feel uninspired on your own, because I'm going to be over here with all the people that actually want to make moves and actually are doing something to build business and create a positive influence in other people's lives. But when you like try and raise the bar for people that don't want to do it for themselves, often we get in this energetic space that it's always the group is dragged down to the lowest level, right? So God forbid you're the lowest level. Okay, don't do that, but also be very cognizant of the inner circle that you spend time with, so that when people do come to you, Tina and I have had these conversations. I'm like, girl, I love you, but it's time to move on. It's time to get it going, right? Like, it's time to we got to go. And I have people in my life that'll say the same thing, especially my husband, right? Like, I'm just like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And he's like, that's ridiculous. Go for a walk. Come back in a little while.
Whatever. Go for a walk on the beach.
Phoebe, one of the things that I really loved to hear you talk about was diversifying your streams of income. You mentioned that when you started entrepreneurship, when I asked you that question, that you invested in real estate, you became affiliated with a network marketing company that was in alignment with your coaching business. So, I really feel it's important for entrepreneurs to not just focus on the one thing, but diversify their income through these streams. So, what made you do that? And also, because you have these different things that you're working on, how do you stay productive and not lose sight and just be all over the place, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not sure if I really was that intentional about it in the early days. I'm definitely more intentional about what I do now, but I think I have varied interests, if you will. And so part of it was in the early days, the coaching business that I started with a teammate, that was sort of natural because we coach, right? And I had been doing coaching for other people. And then when I read the Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was like, wait a second, we can set up our own coaching company. Let's do it. So, that's how that started. Then when I learned about real estate investing, that's when I wanted to, the passive income. Then I was like, okay, real estate. So I added that while I was still coaching. I was still actually playing soccer, high level. Like I just had a bunch of different things. And then from there, I've always loved to connect people. And so a friend of mine, I had been to this event called First Friday when I was down, I think I was in New York at the time. And I loved the idea of it and just bringing people together. And so when he brought it up, because I said, oh, I wish Vancouver had something like that. He's like, well, just do it. And I was like, yeah, true, let's do it. And so we did that because at the end of the day, I just love to bring people together. So in having all these different hats, and even now I continue, I have a bunch of different things that I do. It's because it's all part of who I am. It all aligns with my values. It's all part of, they complement each other in a way. And one of the things, if I go back to that dream day, everything I do right now, I evaluate by that dream day. And I say, is it taking me closer to living my dream day? Okay, if so, I'll consider it. If it's going to take me in an opposite direction, it's not that I won't do it. I'll pause on it. I'll pray on it. I'll be like, okay, well, this isn't really in alignment with where I want to go, but I'm going to, I'll evaluate it. And then most of the time I don't do it because it's not taking me to where I want to go, right? And we can fill our lives with all sorts of things. And you're right. How do you stay productive? Well, I time block a lot. So in terms of like working my businesses, if you will, I time block. Sometimes again, things will happen where I'll have to quickly switch hats and do that. And my personality is I'm able to do that because again, it all ties and they all fuel me. And I'm very much a person where I love to learn, I love to grow, I love to be challenged. And so when I get to a point with a certain project, if you will, or business, and I'm kind of like, oh, I want to keep learning, I want to keep growing. And even with writing the book, that wasn't even on my list of life goals at all. I always laugh when people like write a book. I'm like, no, I'm good. But it aligned with where I want to go. It aligned with one of my core values, which is contribution, right? It aligned with wanting to help and serve and give and learn and grow on my side because it was something brand new to me. So I feel like that's a lot of how I do it. And again, it's not for everyone. I don't recommend putting all these hats at one time because you'll be overwhelmed. And we know a lot of times it can be analysis paralysis. So one of the ways I've built is it's really staying focused on one thing, if you will. And then as other things, if they align and it makes sense, and I feel I have the mental capacity, the time, the focus, and I feel passionate with it, then I might add it in.
Mm-hmm.
So Never Quit on a Bad Day is one book out of these series that you are going to produce. Tell us about the other books that you have coming up.
Oh, you want the behind the scenes? Yeah. So it's interesting because to go from like, it wasn't on my list to write a book to now I'm like, oh, a series. And that's so how God works, because it's been interesting even with the writing of the book, because again, it's surround yourself with great people. I love what you guys are doing here in terms of collaboration because it's just so powerful. And with the book, when I first was like, some friends encouraged me to do it. They, when the story's in the book, but why I decided to do it. And then when I figured out what the theme was going to be, and I always do this thing with God, I call it like my open the door, close the door. And I remember the saying, never quit on a bad day, that I heard like years and years ago. And it's just kind of carried me through in sports and business and life. And so I was like, okay, God, that's a great title for a book. Like because even if no one picks up the book, they hear that saying, never quit on a bad day. It applies to all areas of life. And so I was like, okay, God, if I'm supposed to write this book and move forward, I'll go home after this trip. We'll put it in a GoDaddy. And if the domain's available, never quit on a bad day, then you're saying like, go through it. If it's not, well, you know what? I put it out there.
I tried.
Pardon?
I tried.
Exactly. I went for it. So I was surprised. Because the sayings have been out there, I actually thought it would have been taken and it wasn't. And so I was like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. And then I first started because I've always wanted to create something to help people. And I've always wanted to kind of create like something based on my athletic experience and kind of my business world into something. And so initially the idea behind the book was it was going to be just a collection of stories from athletes, from business owners, kind of all in one. And then when I started like just thinking of the people that I know who are just have incredible stories and have just people who like to give. And so I was like, this is more than one book, right? So then it was like, okay, let's start with thriving entrepreneurs. And the one that I'm working on right now, because you did ask, is accomplished athlete. So cool. It's going to be a collection of stories from athletes. And one of my visions with all the books will be whether you're an athlete or not, you'll get value out of it. Just like this first book, Thriving Entrepreneurs. I have friends, family, people who don't even have businesses who have reached out with feedback, and they said, they felt inspired. They felt like they could dream again. They started taking action on their dreams because it's a book, even though the stories are from people who have entrepreneurial backgrounds, it isn't a business book per se. It really is a book about people who have goals, who have dreams, who have, callings on their life, and they felt blocked. They felt stuck. They felt frustrated and angry and disappointed, and they continue to work through it. So the one right now, is Accomplished Athletes, which I'm just so excited about it.
That's awesome. I love that. So you have a couple of them coming out. So you have Accomplished Athletes, you have Entrepreneurs. Which other ones do you have coming out?
Those are going to be.
You have a list.
Oh, of my. Well, if I say that now, I don't know if we're ready to say that. Let's focus on Accomplished Athletes. No, I do want to do
on the show later on this year or next year when they start coming out.
Pardon me? Say that again, please.
We want to be the first one to let them know.
Well, Accomplished Athletes will be this year, and then we'll see if the other ones, most likely I'll start them like kind of one a year again because of the multiple hats, right? I was the person who, when I first finished this one, because I actually was done in June, but I wanted to release it for my parents, what would have been their 54th wedding anniversary. And so I actually, I held off on it for that reason, because I wanted to release it then, but I was ready to go. I was just like, okay, let's go next one. And we're just going to bang them out like this. This is again, the sport, like just
right.
keep doing, roll. And then, life happened. And this is one of the things, you guys, like sometimes my vision was the other Accomplished Athletes would have came out last year. That was actually one of my initial plans. But you know what? Like my mom fell, I take care of her. She's going through dementia. Like there is a lot of life stuff where I just had to go, hold on a second. I just need to pause because life is happening and I need to, and I want to deliver something that's going to hit and impact. And so I really had to have that conversation with myself and be like, wait a second, I'm the one who created this. It's got to be done like this. No one else said that. So let's pause, regroup, enjoy this moment and what I can, continue to help people with where we're at right now, and then start it when you're ready to start it. So, and here we are, ready to start.
I think that that's so important, because often we want, especially for parents, if we have kids, we work for our family, okay, and then we work for ourselves, and there's no time in the middle for us a lot of the times to pause and reflect and get a balcony view of what we're doing. And so often we don't take that pause, and that's where people quit. They burn out, they break down, they're just overwhelmed, and they're like, I'm done. But if you have the foresight to take a break and to allow yourself that time to readjust, and sometimes that break is a week. Sometimes that break is a month. Sometimes that break is 6 months, right? To a year. And it's okay, especially when you have multiple streams of income, Star. I love that, right? It's okay to take those breaks and reevaluate, okay, is this still the direct path for me? Is this still the right thing for me moving forward? And having that time and space to actually process emotions and be able to work through those problems as opposed to burying them and bulldozing through them. Like I was totally that person when I got into business. It was who I was for many, many years. I just bulldozed through the emotion of it all. I'm like, I can handle this. I don't get stressed out. I'm just going to do it. And then you get to that breaking point and you're like, oh God, this is going sideways real quick. There's Robert. What?
Hello.
There he is.
Thank you.
I
had to make a grand entrance. There's nothing like being 45 minutes late for your own show. So no, that's perfect.
No, we're happy. We knew you were going to be late.
I have been multitasking. Interesting enough, I've had two things going on: a Zoom training, and also everyone else over here
managing us, the women, right?
I've been listening intently. So
managing his girls.
I don't want to stop the flow. Keep going, but Phoebe, it's awesome. I love what you're doing. And by the way, I'm the one clicking the buttons behind the background, flashing things up. So I was still intently listening in. Go ahead with your thought there, Christina.
No, I actually really appreciate that. And, it's part of learning how to manage your emotions, that emotional intelligence. It's part of getting stronger in business. It's part of overcoming all of this adversity to gain strength in who you are and what you decide to do. And really what it comes down to is, are you working in purpose? That's something you talked about, Phoebe, right? Is that you have to say no to everything else that isn't propelling you forward to your greatest good. And sometimes that can be really painful. Sometimes that's the comfortable piece that like keeps it all together. And you're like, but if I keep saying yes to this, it's going to hold me back from doing this. And I love that you're like, no, I never thought of a book. But now that you've got the ball rolling, you're like, but now I've got another book and another book and another book, right? And that's what life is all about, is doing what's best for you. We were taught to have these grandiose dreams, and like nobody wanted to make a mistake. They wanted it to be this perfect execution of their life. And they were so fearful of making mistakes, and not just making mistakes, but being judged for failure in that process, right? And so now, if you can just live your life based on what is the next right move for you right now, and you can quiet the noise, and not just you, but like, you know, your husband, your kids, your like little core, right? Then what's the next right move for you right now? We all have a right to change our minds. We all have a right to grow. We all have a right to follow the path that is meant for us, not the path that other people want us to be on. And I think that once we get rid of that judgment and worrying about what people are going to think, and worrying about how I might disappoint someone, or they might not like me anymore because I've left the company, or they might think, you know, less of me because I'm not here. Once you get over that piece, oh my God, life is freeing on the other side, because there are no rules in entrepreneurship. You get to do whatever you want.
Absolutely. You know, what's interesting, I'll kind of add one thing on there, and it really kind of coincides with what you're talking about right now, Christina, and also what Phoebe had mentioned earlier about that, you know, that point when you were kind of at just this breaking point and you started to work intently on, you know, what you were trying to do, what your focus was, to whom you wanted to serve. And when in business in general, and I talk a lot about branding, right? So when I talk about the individual and I talk about the business, when it comes to branding, even ourselves, we put ourselves in a box many times, right? Because we fall into this niche of who we are and what we're supposed to be, and we feel like we cannot step outside of that box.
Yeah.
One perfect example is I have a client that's a comedian, and so they're always posting comical things, you know, things to inspire people through laughter, and that's all very important. But they were like, I've got some really serious things happening in life. And quite frankly, like the story behind the story that you mentioned earlier, Phoebe, was that they became a comedian to help them with their own traumas from the past, right? And so, you know, laughter was a way that they could overcome that. But they're like, how do I speak on a serious platform when people know me as being the comedian? And I'm like, that's the beautiful thing about it, right? You don't have to just be in that box. And if you've done your service well with those that have already built that factor of know, liking, and trusting you and following you, that even when you step outside of that box and you make this new transition, those that are meant to follow you will follow you, right? You'll resonate. And then you'll even resonate with others that were never even part of your tribe before, because of this new message that you're putting out. And so I love what you're doing. I love the fact that it's a book series, because Never Quit on a Bad Day is something that's perpetual. I feel like it happens to us all the time. And we're continuously learning and developing and growing from that. But anyways, that was kind of something I wanted to throw in there.
Robert, it's funny that you're saying that, because when I went through all my stuff 5 years ago, I was not, you know, I was the gratitude specialist, and people are like, Tina, you're the gratitude specialist. Why are you? And I'm like, I'm still human. Like I'm still human. I'm having a bad time. You know, I know I'm the freaking gratitude specialist, but I hate it.
Yeah.
You know, like they were like, Tina, you're the gratitude specialist. You're supposed to be a ball of sunshine. You're always happy and always go, you know, happy go lucky. And I'm like, I'm not happy go lucky right now. I'm going through something.
Right. No, that's so true. And I talk a lot about, you know, I've mentioned it on the show before, where 4 years ago, almost, you know, I fell into another broken state of my life. It was just a point in my life where there was some, you know, personal trauma that I was dealing with. And I felt imposter syndrome, even to the person I was yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we sit there and we go, well, I'm the person that helps people overcome the problems in their life. And so if I'm in a broken state, how can I really serve them, you know? And so you fall into this, you know, that's, again, never quit on a bad day. That would have been a perfect time for me to quit. And in some ways, I did check out, a little bit here and there. But what I realized is it's in that brokenness, it's in that trauma, it's in those moments of struggle that make you even more relatable to the people that need to hear that message. So quite frankly, you're overqualified at that point in time. It's a perfect time for you to actually reach out and to let people know that you're here, because they're not necessarily focused on your past. They want to see this journey that you're on, and that in itself, the journey of overcoming these things from the past, that in itself is what they are going to relate to, right?
And how you got through it,
Yeah, absolutely.
After I announced our engagement over the Christmas holiday, have reached out like privately saying, Tina, I've been watching you over the last couple of years and just seeing you being able to overcome so much. Although I didn't think that I have overcome, and I'm still going through things, but you're still showing them that you are getting through. They're like, oh my gosh, I've been watching you and all the stuff you've gone through, and the horrible stuff that you went through with your ex and this and that, and now you found the love of your life and you look so happy and da 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 da. And I was like, oh dang. And then so many people are telling me, oh my God, Tina, you look so happy. And I'm like, dang, did I look horrible before?
I was joking earlier when I said, because I think you had mentioned that comment, Phoebe, about, never quit dating, right? Or dating on a bad day, right? And that's really what it is, Tina, is the fact that there's so many people that are still living in that broken state that you were in, right? And they're stuck. You give hope in your current situation that they can have more out of life, so that they don't need to give up. And so I'm going to circle kind of back around just based on, the time, because I know I'm coming in at the tail end. But so Phoebe, when you think of never quit on a bad day, and you may have already touched base on this and a couple different things that you had mentioned, but like, what's one key component that you would say when somebody is reaching that point of like, it's imposter syndrome, limiting beliefs, all these things that just, I mean, we all have it as an entrepreneur, especially, but we have it as just individuals, as humans. So what would you say is one thing that they need to, what's their catalyst? What's the muse that they should focus on to help them through that bad day?
That's a great question. I feel like there's more than one thing, because I do feel like everybody kind of connects with different things. So one of the things that I would say, I'll just speak from it's been what I'm going through right now in terms of some personal is very challenging. And so one of the things that I do is finding moments to be grateful for, right? Like Tina talked about gratitude specialists, like just holding on to a little bit of gratefulness. And no
matter how small it was. Yeah.
Doesn't matter how small it really doesn't. It's like that it could be right now, it could be like 5 minutes of like, okay, we're good. Like, and just holding on to that. I find that has been throughout my journey, what I've had to do. And sometimes it's not grateful for the situation. Because I remember I used to hear all the time, people were like, just be grateful, just be grateful. And, in terms of, I'll just speak one with my dad passed from cancer. And that was the hardest time of my life. Absolutely. And then present time as well, some stuff. But in terms of that, when I'd hear people be grateful, I'm like, I'm not like, what you're going to tell me I'm supposed to be grateful that we're going. However, what I've realized now is it's not being necessarily grateful for that. It's grateful for, again, those 5 minutes, the fact that I had a home business and I could be there at every single appointment, that I'm grateful for. The time that I had, sometimes it's being grateful over here and pulling that gratitude in just to fuel me to continue on with what I'm dealing with over here. So that would be one thing I would say. The other thing, and you guys touched on it as well, and that's why I just love this community, is because having a community, who can you reach out to? I mean, in the book, I have like a workbook page, and one of the pages that I talk about in my story is who can you reach out to? And sometimes as entrepreneurs, the people you would reach out to personally with something on a personal side may not be the person I'm going to reach out to when I have a business issue. Simply being that if I'm having a business challenge, I'm going to reach out to someone when I say a business challenge, like if I'm frustrated, I'm like, this isn't fair, whatever, I'm going to reach out to someone who has been through some business challenges so they can pat me on the back and be like, yep, that's part of the journey. Keep going. Versus if I'm having a challenge over on a personal level, there might be other people who I'm going to reach out to. And it's important to know that, because here's the thing that I learned is if you reach out to, when you're having a bad day, depending if you're going to reach out to someone, be careful who you reach out to, because you could reach out to someone who's going to add some firewood to the fire, or you could reach out to someone who's going to pour water on and be like, let's regroup, let's go forward, we're good. And so, and that's a choice. We can choose who we're going to reach out to. And if you want to move forward, you're going to choose the person who has a big bucket of water and is going to be like, we're okay, let's go. So those would be two. I mean, there's a few others, but those would be the two biggest ones that I would just say for myself. I reach out to people, and like, even with launching the book, it was hilarious. I had a whole bunch of stuff that happened 2 days before the launch, and I was devastated before I'm going to publish this book, devastated. And I called 2 people. They started, and they gave me like a couple minutes to vent and be frustrated. And they're like, wow, that's too bad. And they're like, what's the title of your book?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to laugh.
Damn it.
Right? Like, I was like,
Oh my God. Don't want to hear it.
So true. It's
right.
So true,
and it was just like, as much as I was so devastated in that moment, again, 2 days before I'm publishing this book, and just like blown away that this is even happening at this moment. Such a good lesson, because even when you're going through things are going well, I didn't think I'd have that issue at that point in time. If anything, I thought it would have been months before, but it happened. And to have those 2 people listen, they gave me some time to vent, and they were like, yeah, you're right, that shouldn't even be happening now. But then they threw it back. Well, what's the title of your book? And I was crying, laughing through the tears, but sometimes you need those people who are they're not going to let you add more firewood. They're going to put it out because they know who you are. They know your purpose. They see the belief and confidence, and they want to cheer you on to go forward, not to sit in it. So,
wow. I love that. I know that you had to go at the top of the hour, and so we want to honor that. But Phebe, that's a perfect, we really don't need to add anything more. That is a perfect way to close out today's segment, because, quite frankly, it's that choice, picking up the phone, reaching out to those that are going to continue to fuel the fire, or those that are willing to pick up the bucket, pour it out, and just help kind of pull you along. And so tribe is important, collaborating with those that are like-minded individuals. We all have bad days, quite frankly, each and every one of us, and continuously, regardless of what you see on social media. So being connected with those that you can pick up the phone and reach out to is extremely important. So we thank you. We thank you so much for your time. I came in a little late. I will be reaching out to you personally, because I haven't read your book yet. Most people know that I try to read a book every 10 to 15 days. And so I'm very interested in getting my hand on a few of those for myself and clients. And so we'll talk further about that. But I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Honoring us.
Oh, thank you guys. I love what you're doing. And I'm excited to get to know the rest of you better. Tina, I just adore you. And like, I'm so grateful for this opportunity to share and just encourage. And I think, Robert, what you said is just so powerful. Like, in terms of like, you can choose. And oftentimes you'll see on social media, we're posting the good stuff. It doesn't mean we're not going through it. It's we're choosing to focus on that good stuff. And that is a choice that we have. And so I'm excited to follow you guys and learn from you guys and just continue to grow. So thank you again for the opportunity, and keep doing this, because you're changing lives.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And that's today's segment of the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. Again, follow, like, and share our program. We have amazing guests like Phebe herself, and you'll continue to see her around later on, further on down in 2024 with us as she grows and we grow with her. So thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Be blessed.
Bye, guys.